All right, we're live. Danny Boyd and Auto Salvage Outlaws were here early, as was Wednesday. Wednesday English, she was here that early. Torque Racing Production rolling. How you doing? Dean Stevenson, First Responder Garage, Twisted Mopar Dennis. How's it is? Scarlet the Four-Eyed Cuda, curator of that beautiful red E-body. Colleen Tebow thought I'd be 4 minutes late. That's why I was 4 minutes early. Auto Salvage Outlaws and Jason are here. Don the One-Eyed Cat is here. Heavens Mopars. Don, I'm actually working in the shop today, getting everything ready to get into that 727. That is what I'm preparing for. Have to have everything super organized before you take a transmission apart. Well, at least if you want to run again when you're done. Turbo Tom 416. NSB, how's it going, guys? PJ's Rusted and Busted Garage. Dougster Wolverine Garage, because after all, there were a plethora of Doug Nardens. Indirect Connection Jason. Lars is here. Yeah, Colleen. It's funny because you can set your watch by me. I had a reason. I had to start a few minutes late last time. I said what that was. If I hadn't done that, we wouldn't have that video linked on my community tab. The most of you probably never saw. Streetcar Chronicles. What's up, Ryan? Ryan, I'm trying to go watch some Gear Jammer racing tomorrow, and work is trying so hard to not let me. We will see. Mostly old parts in Rust Patrick, Big Belly Racing. Camp Del Buffo, what's going on, man? Buff's Garage. Cope is here. I'm on your big screen TV. That is really scary. I'm literally bigger than life on that thing, right? Oh. Mofo Driver, 38 POS Racing. Did any of y'all get a 798 in the last couple of days? NSB's asking. I have a feeling Ryan would get 798 with 2 plug wires off. Silver Kilgore. How's it going? Miss Dust Devil. Pure Pontiac Garage is here. My mom is here. Yeah, Streetcar Chronicles, Jam Gears. That's right. The classic Gear Jammers has been around for 33 years. And I have not been to a classic Gear Jammers race in a few years now. I had a friend who was a founding member of that thing, and he died here a few years back. I may have been to one since. But, yeah, I'd like to go if I could, but we'll just see. What? Boy, those people really zeroed in on me. Junkyard D, what's happening? Twisted Mopar says I might be able to get a 798. Well, you can get a 798 like Thelma and Louise. If you could get somebody to time it on the way down. I mean, anybody can get a 798 like that. Dakota is here. Well, cool. Bunch of folks today. So this evening, what I had planned to do was I was going to be down in Gastonia, North Carolina area with Andy. We were going to do some test and tune last night on Casper with the 660s and compare them to the Dominators and try to do a little tuning. But that didn't pan out. Andy had an obligation that he couldn't work around. That's cool. We understand that. But I'm trying to get that rescheduled here really soon. Because obviously we want to get the tuning done with Andy, but there's some cool stuff with David Vizard too. And I think it'd be cool to show you guys and bring it on this channel. It'd be fun. Colleen says you're on my 49-inch TV. It's like you're sitting across the table from me. That is scary. Anyway, that was the plan. Didn't pan out, but that's okay. No matter what, Friday evening, I want to hang out with you guys, but I am planning to get down there soon. David Vizard's got something cool I'm sure he'll want to share with you guys, so we'll talk about that. So I'll get it rescheduled and we'll make it happen. Buck does it. I thought I saw Buck pop in here. Yeah, so tonight, I'll just remind you now, but I'll mention again later. I'm going to be handing off to JB's Little Shop and Tony's Hot Rod Garage. They're going to be live after this live working on the transfer case for JB. So how often do you see people doing transfer case stuff on YouTube? It really isn't that often. So that'll be cool. Ron English is here. Tailor Made Muscle Cars in the house. How y'all doing? Bad Tree Blake. Yeah, I think it was either this morning or yesterday morning. I can't remember now. I just saw Bad Tree was live, and there's Blake out running a pontoon boat, doing pontoon boat things. I thought that was pretty cool. Looked very peaceful out there and cold. It's funny seeing, I guess that's the Mississippi River they're on there, but it's funny seeing it, how narrow it is when you get that far north. I'm used to crossing it there at Memphis, where you get on a bridge for forever and a day to get to the other side. It's a different deal. Dizzy Izzy. Speaking of Dizzy, I got something to show you. I'll go ahead and get it out because I'll get it later too. So in the mail this week came this, right? This is like the briefcase from Pulp Fiction, right? Check these out. So William, Charger 383 Mopar, who is like the most careful, shipper in the world, apparently, he sent this. I'll sit that on my speakers there. This is the trophy topper for the second annual No Name Nationals Burnout Competition. This is a preserved piece of Williams tire that he sent into orbit in the burnout pit. So he made these, I guess that's epoxy or some kind, and has tire cords in there. And he actually made two of them. So this one's going to go on the trophy. And there's another one. Of course, no two are alike, but there's another one. This one is going to go up on the wall by the helmet with his sticker over here. Dougster says, if I own a boat, I want a Chrysler Conqueror with a jet drive. Agreed. Actually, if I was going to have a boat, which that's a huge if, and hopefully I would not do that because I know that boats are just big holes in the water you throw money into. I would want to have a boat with a small block Chrysler. Prefer boat of choice. Anyway, I'll get these back out later so second shift can see them. I just thought that was really cool. So that will be the top of the burnout trophy. And that piston and rod will be the top of the worst oil down trophy. So these things are coming together. Saw Andrew Nelson sneak in, Rob's Rods and Streetcars. Brian English. Oh my goodness, I think we have all four Englishes in here now. Twisted Mopars is awesome trophy material. Indeed. Indeed. Dean Stevenson says, Tire Friar William, honorary ecclesiastical title. Shop 209, what's going on, John? So it looks like you're going to be the latest to do a 4-door to 2-door conversion, huh? Buff says, hopefully no oil down this year. Well, I mean, we hope not. We don't want anybody to break stuff, but what are the odds? We got a lot of people running a lot of stuff hard. Jed Scott was in the running to win it. He was close with that tail shaft snapping in two. But then Steven had to send this into orbit. So Rob's Rod and Streetcar says didn't have to wear a jacket to mow this time. Yeah, there's something that feels so wrong about having to wear a jacket to mow. It's like it's not warm enough to be able to enjoy outside, but you still have to mow. It's like, no, one or the other. If I have to mow, I at least want to be able to enjoy the weather. Rob's Rob the Streetcar says, I don't want the Oil Town trophy. I would hope nobody would want it, but things happen. And, we could at least do that to thank them for the show they put on and the offering they made to the God of Speed, I guess. Andrew Nelson, 4-door to 2-door. Who's that? Well, Shop 209 looks like he's going to try it on a Nova, one of your kind of Novas. So that'll be interesting. We know DD's Speed Shop did that on a 57 Chevy and launched his channel with it. Big Belly Racing wants me to sell him that intake sitting right there. No, that actually may go on my Swinger. We'll see. I'm starting to have serious thoughts about how I want to do that now. Serious enough that I'm already sketching stuff out and making some plans. I'll not promise tomorrow. I don't want to leave it mothballs forever. Besides, I've got to get it out so I can have the trolls tell me everything that's wrong with it. Shop 209 says it's much harder on a Nova. Absolutely. That's what makes yours interesting. Yours is not a modular body. I can see it being far more difficult. So, yes. Shop 209 pulling this off will by far be the most involved 4-door to 2-door conversion I've seen on YouTube. Because some cars are practically modular. That one is not. Yeah, Andrew Nelson, check it out. That one's going to be good. If you're not subscribed to Shop 209, go check out what he does over there. He's just one of these people I can describe as being legit. He's legit. You get over there, you'll see what I'm saying. Auto Salvage Outlaws talking about tires that are 30 years old, right? I'm all about that. I run some of the sketchiest tires you've ever seen. Streetcar Chronicles says, I want to see someone go from 2-door to 4-door conversion. I agree. I think that's overdue. I think that's great. You know how great that would be if someone went from 2-door to 4-door. I was even thinking about that when I saw his pop up. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if somebody went the other way? Just so you could have all these white sneaker wearing mesh hat car show guys talk about the horror of it and how the earth has stopped turning on its axis because you're doing this. I would love to hear that. Andrew Nelson says rear glass on the Nova will be tough. Well, John, Andrew Nelson there loves doing body work, so he would be all about that. It's his favorite thing. Body work is just one of these things I just feel like it's tax that comes with owning a car. I hate it. It's almost like it's punishment to have paint on there. But oh yeah, Streetcar Chronicles says the anguish the internet went. Oh my gosh. There are literally 2 or 3 guys out there in their 70s with perfectly groomed mustaches. They wear white New Balance. They have a perfect house. They used to be on their HOA board. They have mesh hats. They have the little kid made out of pillows and overalls leaning on the front bumper of the car. And those guys are going to see him take a 2-door and make a 4-door, and they're going to have a stroke. Shop to announce that I'd have to section in part of it. Right. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of fabrication either way in that. Twisted Mopar loves bodywork. Good for you, man. Good for you. You tell me that's not right, Ryan. You know that's true. You know that those guys who all have exactly the same wife named Gladys, just these three different people, but you could say Gladys, and all three of them, she's going to watch them start to seize up and call the rescue squad and blame you because that was on his screen was that 2-door to 4-door conversion. Yes, Buff HOA board. I actually showed 2 houses in an HOA today, and I'm glad I did because it reminds me how much I absolutely would rather live in a tent. I would rather live in a storm sewer than live in an HOA. These yards, you could park 2 cars in the backyard and never have to mow. But, of course, it's an HOA. They wouldn't let you do anything that good with your backyard. There's Captain Dew and Brian Beeler. I gotta say, I was watching Beeler's car roundup that he premieres yesterday on Camaros. And I'm not a GM guy by any stretch, but I watched that, almost all of it. I was thoroughly enjoying that. Just, seeing what's out there and what it commands, and it was neat. Buffdale campus, I hate those places. I totally agree. I totally agree. Road Beer says, I'd make the same face at the 2-door conversion as a beautiful car being destroyed in a movie. Yeah. Mopar House says, I hate the HOA. Glad I don't live in one. Well, if people are free to create whatever ridiculous rules they want, but the sad thing about the HOA is it's not that the people living there want those rules. The builder wants to protect his investment. See, if he has 100 houses to sell, he doesn't want, Joe Dirt moving into the 5th house, killing the value on the 95th house. This is why the HOA is something that you have a set of covenants that expire in so many years, and then the neighborhood needs to get together and renew them. And if HOAs actually functioned like they should, and they were healthy and all that, they probably wouldn't be as bad, but they usually don't. Usually what you get about 3 Karens that care about the size of the flower pot on the front porch, and they are wound up running your life. So because of that, the things get corrupted before the first half of the subdivision is sold. It gets corrupted. That's what happens to them. I could never live in an HOA. Never. I would rather live in a tent than have that to deal with. I bet you that they would, if I lived in a homeowners association, I bet there would be a campaign to get rid of my van by any means possible. Danny Boyd says they attract a special sort of tyrant. Usually that's the kind of people who want to run them, unfortunately. Road Beer says the people running them are the type that would convert a 2-door to a 4-door. No, the people running them are the kind that would get the most plain vanilla transportation appliance possible and park it in their garage with the screwdriver door opener that doesn't make any noise. Because, a car is just this necessary evil to do whatever it is they do with their life that doesn't have to do with cars. Streetcar Chronicle says they tried to get me on the 55 sitting on the driveway too. Yeah, see, I hate that stuff. If I lived in one, I would be mad that you got that cool piece of art sitting out there. I'm like, can he leave it out there a little while longer? I like passing it on the way to work, but no, that's not the way they think. Yeah, have a cure. Don't move into one. Exactly. If people want to get together and do that, they can do that. I missed selling a $500,000 house last week because the HOA had covenants that didn't allow people to shoot. And these are 8-acre lots, and this is the last lot that backs up to about 100 acres. There's no reason these people couldn't do that there except these covenants. And I told them, you can appeal to change them. The problem is going to be you're going to have one person up there that just loses their mind over it. So Ron English is asking me to explain to Brian English what an HOA is. An HOA is a homeowners association where it's typically started by the builder of a subdivision. Doesn't have to be, but 99+% of the time it is, where there are covenants put on the land telling you what you can't do with your house and your property. And they have all kinds of things. They can be over the height and location and styles of fences, the style of storm door, the size and number of flower pots you can have, whether or not you can have flags out front and what kind of flags, and everything, all kinds of stuff about vehicles and what time of day you can do this and that. It's for people who don't mind living a very plain, low-key, nondescript life that other people control. Yes, I saw that mostly on Parts and Rest. There was a YouTuber who had a patina. Actually, it wasn't a patina truck, I don't think. I think he just had decals and stuff on it. And yeah, $1,200 fine from the HOA. Unfortunately, they have a massive amount of control. They really do. Tell them to go pound sand. You can't, because you bought a house with those deed restrictions. All you can hope to do is get on the board of the said HOA and try to change it. But the problem is Danny Boyd says no American flags. That's right. Most of them don't allow flags because they want to keep the Confederate flag out. And so to keep it consistent, they just don't allow any flags. Lost sale that way one time too. I had a client who was from, I think he was from South Dakota. And I'm telling you, this guy, he was absolutely a twin of Evel Knievel. I'm still not to this day 100% sure it wasn't Evel Knievel. I'm really not. Said his name was Jim. He looked exactly like Evel Knievel did at that age. Of course, this was many years ago while Evel Knievel was still alive. He was from South Dakota. He floated into town. He had plenty of money. He floated back out. He talked just like Evel. He looked, if the guy had told me, he says, you know what, I really am, I wouldn't even question it. The guy looked exactly like him. But anyway, Evel Knievel body double here, Jim, had a contract on a really nice, expensive townhouse. It's technically a condo on Revolution Circle in the old people community out here. And they said, no American flags. He says, I'm willing to park my RV at a place down the road. I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do that. But I am not willing to not put my flag out. The guy, I think he said he fought in the Korean War. He said, I am not going to not fly my American flag. And they said, well, you can't have flags here. And then he told them in the most descriptive terms possible what they could roll up and do with that purchase contract. So I applaud his principle. Cost me a lot of money, but I'm completely in agreement with his principle. Brian English says the HOA people want to be the government. Yeah, well, actually it is. It's a mini government. Twisted Mopar Garage says, why I'd never moved one. I know people who love them because they just want everything to be as plain and their idea perfect as possible. No garage doors left open, no vehicles. Actually, it's funny. The new thing in HOAs, check this out, is you have to leave the doors open in some places because they were finding illegal subleases on people living in the garages. Well, Andrew, that's what came up was HOA stuff. It's just what happens. I mean, usually this crowd, you don't have to tell them to bring up car talk, but I mean, what is the track? I say there was a track. No, it's yeah, twisted Mopar. That's kind of a thing. One-eyed cat, is that what you want it to be white? His transmission is red. It's getting ready to come down. I just got to get everything organized and ready for it. The last thing you want to do is take a transmission apart where you've been doing tear down and fabrication and stuff, and you just don't want to do that. I like my floor to be clean enough that if I have one check ball for a valve body or one seal get away somehow, I can just pick it up. And that takes some doing. It's been a while since I've done a build like that. I do the valve body inside on the dining room table. That's just where I do it. Carburetors, same thing. Carburetors and valve bodies, that's where that gets done. Why I don't do distributors there, I don't know, because you would think so. It seems kind of reasonable, but no. It's valve bodies and carburetors get built on the table. Put out a big piece of cardboard, and that's where it gets done. So that's where I'll do the valve body. But the transmission itself, well, this is funny too. I'll do I'll do it outside just because I like all that natural light. So I have a white 8-foot table, spread that out, and then a cart and a system where I build that. I'll do that outside. But it's really clean, and that's just the way I do it. Andrew Nelson, who has the quickest pass of the year? Sound off, gents. Dean Stevenson's talking about, because that's where Elvis Aaron Presley lives in the dirt. He's been gone since just before I was born. Dizzy Izzy had a menu from the Sands Resort in Vegas from '67 with his signature. Oh, cool. Yeah, old Vegas is gone. I think some of that stuff held on through the '80s and the '90s is when they imploded all that stuff and built the new Vegas. Where you have like the MGM, Mandalay, and Luxor and all that. Yeah, Dougster says the association doesn't like minor oil leaks in the driveway. They think it's like the wrecking of the Exxon Valdez. I have one that you wouldn't believe spot in my driveway. Just, I know one thing, it'll never rust. Streetcar Chronicles is saying 632 on the draggy. Still not done enough to take it to the track. Very close, though. Busy as he had to pay to drop a big tree next to my house. Yeah, I'm trying to get somebody to do some serious tree trimming for me. It's not easy because there's a lot of tree trimmers who cut them and climb them. Mine don't have what climbers need. So I got to get somebody to come out with one of those crazy tall bucket trucks to do it. I was guessing that Carl Rhines was going to be about a 6'10". That was my guess. He's close to that too. He's about 100 pounds away from that. First responder garage to the internet is slow. Took out a tower. Well, it happens. Big Belly Racing. What am I drinking? Diet Dr. Pepper. I think that's my blood type. What are the 23 flavors? I don't know. I live very close to Pepper Street in Christiansburg, Virginia, and Dr. Pepper, supposedly the name came from Charles Pepper, and a pharmacist that lived here in Christiansburg. That's official per Dr. Pepper. Of course, that was 1885, so they're not, but they do recognize that. that this town had something to do with the naming of it. Country Mile Garage is how things are. They're good. They're good, all things considered. Kind of got my weekend rearranged. We're supposed to be live. For those of you just getting here, we're supposed to be live with David Vizard and Andy Wood tonight. Had to rearrange a little bit. Hopefully, we'll get that turned around and reschedule soon. There's some cool stuff to talk about down in North Carolina. Dean Stevenson, it's like when you get mugged by Rastafarians. What do the colors mean? Okay. Junkyard D's 66 Valiant. Junkyard D's got some pretty cool stuff going on there. He's got a longer term project with a Valiant, and then he's got ones a little bit earlier. Big Belly Racing. Be careful of the aspartame. How you be careful of it? You just drink it or you don't. There's a whole lot of things that are definitely not going to kill me. Maybe that's one that will. Andrew Nelson went 587 without a draggy. Okay, cool. Dean Stevenson, the 23 flat. Those recipes are kept under lock and key. Very few people are privy to them for a reason, because if you try to patent something like that, people will rip it off. So that's something that has to be kept a trade secret. And, think about it. Dr. Pepper is 1885. Coca-Cola is 1886. So at this point in time, there's no point in disclosing them. We probably don't want to know what all 23 are. Yeah, the man worked for the soda counter and had all the syrups. Yeah, that's probably where it came from, truthfully, like Petty Blue. Ron English is 138 days plus hours until midnight. Well, yeah, it's 138, 3 hours and 31 minutes and change. Country Mile Garage is doing a 7.3 swap. So you're taking out the international engine that has all the EGR problems with it and going to a good old 7.3 they never should have gotten away from. I got a buddy who has a diesel truck shop, and oh my, it's such a big job fixing that mess. When one of those 6.0s just takes a dive and falls apart. He says it's one whole day getting to it. They pull the cab off the truck and lift the cab on a lift, and then it's one whole day doing the swap, and then it's one whole day putting it all back together. Yes, Auto Salvage Outlaws. Coke, I think, had a trace amount of cocaine. I don't think it was anywhere near that late. No, it wasn't that late, but in the very early days, yes. Yeah, exactly. Country Miles getting rid of the 6.0, putting the 7.3 reliable in there. Exactly. Comments have stopped for a second. Hope they haven't just frozen. There we go. I have had that happen before. Dust Devil Garage is here. What's going on? Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen, the Knuckle Duster is running. Oh, I should play that clip now that I I got to show you this. This is the best. All right, here we go. So I took this little clip from Dust Devil Garage when Brian got his first start on his car, and it surprised nobody more than it surprised Brian. Check this out. If I can do this. Again, if you missed it, look at the look on Brian's face when that car fires off. I'll let y'all caption that. That was really funny. I'm really happy for Brian. That was a long time coming. Turbo Tom spent all afternoon replacing an injection pump on a Cummins. That's the only thing I've ever been tempted in any of this late model truck stuff would be the Cummins 6-cylinder, but it still is too complex for my taste. Yes, I'm very happy for Brian. Evans Mopar says I'm happy. Me too. I thought that was cool. Tony's Hot Rod Garage. You got to go watch that. Well, you saw the best part of it. But do watch it. Yeah. That car has really come a long way. I tell you, it was only until recently when he got the wiring done and a lot of these little support system, it's really looking like a car now. So I'll be excited for him driving it out of that shop. I think he still needs a drive shaft for it. And if everything's in the factory location, factory springs, it should just be able to use a 340 Duster Demon Dart Sport drive shaft because the 727 is an 8 3/4. So that drive shaft, factory one, will fit in it. LNA Auto Works is asking how I went to my first Jeep show. I don't have the video up yet. I took some video of it. I can show a snippet, but my mom and I took my dad's white Jeep to a Jeep show. This is a picture from it. So there's a lifted 75 CJ5 with a 383 Chevy Stroker on one side and a fairly stock 74 CJ5 on the other. That white one is an 80 with a factory steel hardtop. I got video to come on this, but that's just what I had there. There was some cool stuff, though. I interviewed most of the people in the vintage class. Let's see if I can grab a clip of that, since I know I have many. Here we go. I have to turn it a little bit. Anyway, yeah, that was actually my vote for vintage choice right there. That's a M38, a 51 M38 flat fender, and the guy's made it kind of like a day 2 restoration. He's done some things to make it less miserable on the road. What I think is funny to these guys, including this guy, I told him that they put a key switch in it. Yeah, we got to make it more theft proof. I'm like, dude, it's a 3-speed manual. It's already about as theft proof as it's. Oh, and it only goes 45 miles an hour. It's got 538 gears in it. You really don't have to worry. The key switch is not what's going to keep someone from stealing it. And it has a foot pedal for the starter. So it's got they don't use a starter relay. They have it almost looks like a dimmer switch. There's a button on the floor on the transmission hump that you reach over and you push with your right foot. And then it connects hardwire to the starter, to the battery to start it. I mean, how many car thieves have, between that and a 3-speed manual, that key switch does nothing. Nobody's going to steal that thing. Yeah, the Jeep's climbing the wall. That was fun. He had little kids and taking rides there on the fairgrounds, but I gotta see if I got a picture. The guy who won the vintage class, because I really like this one. This cat right here. Now that's a CJ2A, I believe, and he painted it green. It's a civilian Jeep, civilian trailer, but it's the only other factory hardtop there. I saw the guy was on foot on the other side of the fairgrounds. He was gloating about having the only factory steel hardtop. I said, nope, there's two of them here. He said, factory? I said, yes, there's two. Really? I said, yeah, go look at the white one. So there were two of those factory steel tops. But that was a cool piece. He trailered it there, but he only lives in Floyd. I don't know. He could have driven it. But I'll get video of that up. Yeah, but he recreated the stencils and stuff on it, which is what I think a person should want to do with that. It's just too cool. I don't know whose that was. I never did run into that guy. That's a civilian Jeep. That one right there it's a Ford general purpose too. And then that's an M38. So there were actually two military combat Jeeps there. And then the white one there, my old man's, was a civilian Jeep, but it was bought by the Navy. So that actually was owned by the military, even though it's a civilian Jeep. Anyway, there's a bunch of late model stuff too. And if you want to see all that, just watch the video. What's cruising speed on the Jeep? Well, this one, I had it up to about 53, and it was pretty happy. It doesn't have a lot of rear gear in it because it is a civilian Jeep, and it's a 4-speed. It's T176 4-speed. It was a whole lot more interesting going from 55 to 0 than 0 to 55. I can tell you that. It needs some work, but still runs good. I actually rebuilt the top end of the engine in 2017 on it. It runs good. Just needs a lot of other stuff. Biff Del Campo, does anyone have an M151 Mutt? No, I didn't see one there. Dad always wanted one, but as you know, those things are hard to come by that got out of surplus without being cut up or destroyed. And he's had a couple opportunities to buy them. He was always really anti-welding. He never believed in welding anything. He just thought welding was just this worst process that should never be done on anything ever. And I would even show him, I said, the factory welded a lot of stuff on cars, but it didn't matter. I said, if you want one, you can weld one together. But just wasn't to be. The death trap thing depends how you use it. If you just have it if you know what it is and you know that it's just a car show thing, then it's fine. If you want it for a daily, you can get out and corner with, and yeah, you're probably going to roll it. Yeah, buffalo weld in, all right. But just wasn't to be. I have a story about unwillingness to weld on that white Jeep y'all would never believe, but it's just nothing can be welded. Well, things are getting welded now. The top on it has had a spot weld that cracked that held the B pillar where the passenger door latches for the longest time, and I wanted to spot weld it years ago and couldn't. And now the top is not square. So now the top needs to be braced up and more work done to put it back in shape before that can be fixed. But it'll get there. What it really needs is frame caps. The frame where they have that hollow box frame, they don't drain well and they give mud, and that one had a bunch of sand and even seashells and stuff in it. And all that's gone now, but it needs to have caps put on it and welded on where the spring hanger's on. Thumper was doing something constructive for a change. Awesome. Yeah, Buffalo Campus says, don't fly around corners like a young G. I actually know a guy who rolled an M151. He had one and rolled it. I mean, if you have big, tall tires on your truck, you can roll it too. But I agree. It was the M151. What it really was is it was an evolutionary step between the Jeep and the Humvee. Really, that's what it was. Kind of like computer controlled carburetors. They were an evolutionary step between a good carburetor and EFI. They just one of the steps they went through to get from one to the other. That's pretty much the M151 was. I thought was interesting was that 42 Ford GPW. Now that's something you never see. But this guy had it all going on. He had he had a uniform on, and he had his World War II pencils and the whole thing. It set up like a desk. You'll see it all in the video. I interviewed almost every guy in the vintage section. Country Mile likes TBI to fuel injection. I'm a carburetor guy, but I kind of dig port fuel injection, I think. But I like a carburetor better than either. So Dougster said a friend Cliff restored a 69 GMC that spread chloride for a trailer park. Oh, yeah. Well, the reason this white Jeep is so rusty is it was a shore patrol vehicle. It was run on the beach. And 23,000 miles, you would not believe how much rust it had with 23,000. Everybody said it had to be 100, but it's not. We actually have the maintenance logs from Quantico. It's a legit 23,000 miles. And it runs like one, it shifts like one, all of that. Well, when he got it, but the body just has so much rust. But you could tell from everything else, nothing was really worn in it. Punisher Le Mans is here. Saw Blake slide in here too. Bear Rose says the worst thing Ford ever did was the motor. Ford did so many bad things, I don't even know where to rank that abomination of a carburetor. Yeah, they were junk, but Ford sure had a lot of that stuff. I was on a firing range for doing vehicle tactics one time, and there I have a picture of it actually. I don't want to pull it up now, but I might have put it on my community tab. There was a Cadillac out there that had the 468 thing where it had the cylinders that would shut off. And it was out there, and that thing had bullet holes all in it. Man, that thing looked rough. And I'm just sitting there thinking, yeah, that was about the highest and best use for one of those. Dean Stevens says people don't do feedback carbs because they don't understand them. I don't know. There's a lot of things people don't like just because they don't understand. I'll grant you that, but Big Belly Racing has a 78 Ram Charger on 35s. I would love to find a pair of Ram Charger wheels, the plain steel Ram Charger wheels. I think they had them for 77 and 8 only. They're 15 by 8 plain steel 4.5-inch bolt pattern wheels. I'd love to find, if you find a pair of those, I'm interested. Buff Del Campo had a 302 Fairmont wagon with a variable Venturi and went over 100,000 without touching it. Awesome. Call Guinness Record Book. Captain Deuce said Thermoquad is way more better than the Quadrajets. Well, Thermoquad and Quadrajet had their advantages and disadvantages. It all depends better in which way. Our friend Dallas Brown is all about the quadrojet. Some people are all about the thermoquad. I like the Holly, but that's, a lot of that's just familiarity. But I definitely just like an old school Holly. That's my style. Punisher Lamon's got a Holly 750. That's just hard to beat. It's just a great design. So Dean has found the other guy that got that many miles out of one of those carbs. Shop 209, the drive there is going to be a drive. Road Beer Garage says an AFB is greater than a Holly, is greater than a thermoquad, is greater than the quadrojet. Okay. AFB's all right. I guess it depends what you're doing with it. Andrew Nelson says Holly to the front. Punisher Le Mans is also have an Edelbrock 650. Not sure which to use. Well, 318 wheel run just did a back-to-back comparison on I want to say it was something. No, he did a Brawler and an AVS 2. So Thumper says an AFB is for people who can't tune carbs. Yeah, they're different. They're different to tune, that's for sure. I prefer the Holly system, but everybody's got their thing. Would I ever have an AFB? Yeah, if I had a Hemi, I'd probably have two AFBs. I know people who use an AFB for their go-to. Like everybody who does this stuff that we do needs to have one carburetor that they know is right, one 4-barrel that they can drop on anything to get it to run. Like if you find that car in the weeds, you pull the plugs out, you oil it, you turn it over and that kind of thing, and you got spark and you need a good carburetor to put on there so it'll run. You got to have that one. I think Joe's carburetor he keeps around just for that I think his is an AFB. Mine's a 600 Holly. No matter what it is, but you got to have one of those. I'm considering that 600 going on the van. Well, Road Beer Garage, one thing that makes a Holly a whole lot better, and I've learned from my friend Andy Wood, is if you can restrict and meter that intermediate circuit so that it doesn't just pour gas in it with the throttle cracked. That makes the biggest difference. Makes a massive difference in gas mileage and drivability on those things. Punisher Le Mans wants to put a TH400 together if he can get a trans brake. Should be able to, but I got to tell you, old Two Hacks Jeff's been waiting on a trans brake for I don't know how long. I mean, there are things that you just have to wait for forever. See, the right answer is run a torque flight. Cope will have you trans brake the same week, and an awesome one. And Cope's trans brake goes on the bottom of the valve body. I think everybody else, I don't know anybody else puts it on the bottom. His goes on the bottom of the valve body between the filter and the valve body. So it's sitting in that fluid, and I wonder if that affects it, but you can't argue with the way they work. It's the crispest brake I've ever driven. Yep, where Road Beer still live in Bowling Green where they build them, yeah. Well, Holly today is not Holly of the 70s either. So there's that. I have a Holly that I got in trade. I have nothing in it. And I think we pinned down what years that this was done. They made the main body out of something that just crumbles to nothing. It's some kind of, It's some kind of metal that just disintegrates, and maybe I'll do a video on it. But this metal, the valve, the main body is made out of, and it's not the bowls, it's not the metering blocks, not the base plate, it's just the main body. But it's got all these little cracks running all through it, and some of them you can hold it up to light and see through them. So there's not cosmetic. It is definitely a problem. It's definitely vacuum leaks. You can see light through them, a few of them. But this carburetor was made in the early 90s, about 90, 91. I'm pretty sure that by 93 or 4, that problem was fixed. Andy told me about it. And there was a fix. They changed the metal and fixed it. But I know the one that I bought new in 94 does not have this problem. This one I got from 90 does. So what was the first year of it, I don't know. But there were several years where there was that. So Punisher saw one locally at Marketplace for $350. Well, there's trans brakes everywhere, but they're not all created equal. I can tell you that. There's a big difference between say a turbo action and copes, and there's a lot of difference in your trans brakes. Holly will replace those carbs for free. Well, that's interesting. Because, I mean, the other option is you could just trade it out and put a valve body. I keep saying valve. You got me switching back more between main bodies and valve bodies. I could put a main body on it and would solve the problem completely. Dean's talking about the 4010, 4011, and 4360. I don't know off the top of my head what those are, but Thumper says if you have a real Pontiac, you can leave from idle. They make a lot of torque. I got to tell you, though, I got really spoiled on a trans brake here a few years ago, and I just like it. It'd be better if you had a transparent so you can see inside the car. I don't want to see through it. I can see plenty enough looking down it with it running and watching air fuel. 38 POS Racing says Predator carb equals oversized fish carb. I have never gotten to work on a Predator. It's one of those things, if I ever found one cheap, I'd probably snag it to experiment. There were some guys trying to resurrect the Predator carburetors a few years ago and make the parts needed to make them work. And I don't think it ever got any traction. I don't think it ever went anywhere. I actually got to ask the guy that runs the office for Bigfoot 4x4 about their, because they had the engine rebuilt on Horsepower TV, and they'll admit it doesn't do what they would hoping it would do when it was rebuilt. But it had a trio of Predator carburetors on it, and they really wanted to make that work again and said you can't get parts for them. So I don't know. I'm sure it's doable. Somebody that really wants to do it needs to take one and sit down and study it and make the parts. They're beautiful carburetors. They look neat. Yeah, Punisher Le Mans, remember seeing them on monster trucks. Yeah, Bigfoot ran them, and they of course were very successful with them. I don't know what the last one to have them was. They may have run those things all the way through the 80s. I know that the first few had them. Punisher Le Mans is looking for a second gear leave brake. That is the issue. Why don't you put a torque flight in that thing? Just do it. Seriously, just do it. You can get an adapter plate for the GM. I know you can. And just put a torque flight in it. Then you can have a first and second gear leave. You can do a torque flight. You can do a 518 and have the overdrive. You can have all of that. See, that's the reason why there's not a 46 RE in Andy's truck right now, or in Jeff's Ford, because you can't get the Ford adapter plates. You can get them for the GM. You could do that. Ray could have a torque flight in that thing next week. You can turn the sprag and blow up the drum too. Well, TH400 blows up on the top end. There's ways to keep to protect yourself from that on the torque flight. Bolt-in sprag is a help, which I don't even understand why that's a thing. The 904, especially the later ones, have bolt-in sprags, and the early ones had pinned-in sprags. It wasn't a thing. They should have done that on the 727 the whole time. Why those were pressed in, I have no idea. Yeah, because the early 904s had pins, and my 904, I think beginning in 80, 88 maybe, they had 11 bolts that bolted the outer race of the sprag to the case. 11 bolts. That thing's not going anywhere. Road Beer's asking an interesting question. He has a slant 6 with a hydraulic clutch and an MP435. Okay. Has anyone swapped the slant 6 to 360 with this bell housing? But you're going to run a different bell housing anyway because the starter's in a different spot. Seems there's no room for the clutch to me. That's weird. I mean, that should be a pretty common bell housing. Just a regular small block to an MP435. That ought to be easy. Yeah, Tony says bolt-in sprag low band apply. That's a big deal too. Make sure you have low band apply on that valve body. Road Beer says both patterns and it's one of a kind. Yeah, I'll say it's one of. I've never seen one of those. I have never seen one. Does it have both starter locations too? That seems really bizarre. I'd love to see a picture of that. Yeah, it says low starter, but the slant 6 has a starter up high. That is weird. It's drilled with both the small. Yeah, but what about the starter locations? Because the starter on a small block is down low. Starter on a big block's in the middle, and the starter on a slant 6 is up high. What does it have for that? I'd love to see that. Captain Deuce says the A500 is a 904 overdrive. Yes. Yep. A500 actually has all kinds of good parts for building a 904, or just build the A500. I wish that the A500, I wish the case was the same as the 904, but it's not. It's less than an inch wider, and it's to bolt that overdrive unit on. I wish it had the same case because those are really beefy cases. Tony's Hot Rod Garage, as far as I know, the CRT valve bodies are the only ones to offer low band apply. Yeah, probably. That's a big help because then you have both the sprag and the low reverse band holding. But seriously, Punisher Le Mans, you can run an adapter plate and run a torque flight, you'd be in business. TH400 is a great piece too. I don't know enough. I mean, I've never done anything with a TH400 before. I think I did one 350 TH350 back in the day. We had to do a bunch of different stuff for trade school. That's the last time I worked on any of that. It's not that I wouldn't. I don't have any fear of doing a TH400. I just never have. I know Andrew Nelson has a TH400. He runs them in a couple of things. He'd be a good one to ask. Well, yeah, Captain, you can get an overdrive kit, but I mean, that gear vendors is $3,000. You can build a fantastic A518 or A500 for that. and have something that's so much more compact. And you can't really split the gears. I mean, not practically. So the 4-speed is the way to go. Where the gear vendors shines is when you have something like a truck with an MP435 or a T90 or something. You want to keep that original truck transmission, but you want to have that overdrive. And even then, there's a lot of good options for 5 speeds and stuff like that. But the gear vendors is very tough. But yeah, if you had something like a D600 ramp truck, or like that ramp truck Jed has, that'd be a good candidate for gear vendors or something. But man, they're just so expensive. Brian English has got 4 a.m. coming soon. All right, man, understood. Travis is here. What's going on, man? Yeah, Dougster says I want a 518, but the cost of building one plus, 800 for that, the big block of bell housing or adapter. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. I get that. I get that. But you get what you pay for. I'm going to do a 518 for the van because the van's going to be my tow rig. What I'm thinking the hot ticket for the van is I'm going to get a 9 1/4 rear axle for like a 1500 van, a later one, because that's a much heavier duty axle, but it still has the 5.5 truck pattern. So it'll run the wheels that are on the van. I definitely want to keep the van's wheels it has. But I'm going to get it in a 392 rear ratio, in a 392 gear ratio. Because when I put the 518 in it, if I can find that ratio, I'll put the 518 in it. I'll be cruising low RPM, the lockup converter on the highway. That's the idea. And then I want to do a stroker 318 just so I can horrify people with the idea that I'm towing with a 318 in a van. But it'll be a stroker. It'll still be a 318. Because I need Mr. Swinger to tell me about 68 times how superior his 340 is. And then I need to tell him I have 3 340s and prefer to run a 318. Yes, Patrick, we're going to have all kinds of A-body on A-body action in Sykeston. Need lots of that. That'll be great. Need lots of good races coming up in Sykeston. So Tony's saying $6.91 and 79 cents for the big block Ultra Bell. Yep. Dr. Go appears out of nowhere. Glad you could join us. Will you do the 390 stroker 318? That's exactly what I'll do. Yep, you got it. Well, or maybe 394 if it needs to go 30 over, something, whatever cleans up the bore, 4-inch stroke. I'll consult with Vizard and Professor P and Lukey B, see what they say on the right cam for it, and take my time and put a little work into the heads. And I think it'll be a great tow motor. Yeah, everything is expensive right now, Tony. Everything. It's ridiculous. Well, Dr. Go, it'll be a while. I mean, until I get my house finished up and squared up, until I get that done, I am stuck over there. But I am badly wanting to do that. Although the van runs great. On the one hand, it'd be fun to say I have the original engine and keep the original engine, but I don't want to take that one apart. It runs great. Still has good oil pressure. It sounds good. Runs good. Driven that thing everywhere. Danny Boyd says a house will consume you. Yes, no doubt. GM A body versus Mopar A body racing action. Yes. Yep, Ryan's has technically a GM A body. Technically. Thumper says I work on the house in the winter. Summer is outside work time. Agreed. Depends on what I'm doing. I hate working in the cold. I cannot tell you how much I hate the cold. This house has a mix of inside and outside work to do. Mostly inside now. The outside looks amazingly better. But I need to get some final done on the electrical and some drywall. And I'll tell you how much I hate that kind of work, but we're going to do it. We're going to get it done. Captain Dew's asking, how many vacuum lines has the carb got on a 318 for a 4-barrel swap on a 2-barrel intake? Well, one, I would never do that. I don't want to do it for looks, so I'm going to stick a 4-barrel on a 2-barrel intake. As far as I'm concerned, you really only need your line to the vacuum advance, and then you're going to have a line for your brake booster. If you have power brakes, that's it. There isn't anything else. All that other stuff is junk. The van's got a little timer. It's called an EGR timer on the firewall. I hate all that stuff. 38 POS Racing says, my house is like my car. It's never done. No house is ever done. No house is ever done. It doesn't work like that. No house is ever done. Dr. Goes thinking about mine next year. I've towed 25,000 miles with a 2,000-pound trailer on my 40-year-old 318. Yeah, well, 2,000-pound trailer's a breeze. I tow a 2,000-pound trailer with the CRV all the time. Nothing to it. 2,000-pound trailer is easy. You don't need brakes, anything. It's 7,000 or 8,000 pounds pulling a car trailer with a car on a trailer. That is a different matter. And I really don't want to wind up toasting the 999 torque flight in it. It shifts so smooth. I tell you, it's really hard for me to want to make this upgrade on the van for towing because it runs good and just shifts so smooth. The original transmission, over 200,000 miles, it just runs great. Tony says, I remember those EGR timers. Yeah, they are junk on a stick. I don't know what they were thinking. The thing looks like a voltage regulator. Fortunately, the pins are across from each other instead of in a V shape, so you can't, you can't accidentally think it's a voltage regulator. That would be, because it looks like one. It looks just like one other than that. Wolverine says, my parents are just finishing the edition we built in 92. You'll never finish it. Not supposed to. It's the rest of your life. Barrows has 3 vacuum lines and PVC. Yeah, PVC. Yeah, right. It depends what you have. But that's it. That's, to me, is it. That's everything. A code said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'll tell you what, if I don't fix it, a car trailer will break it. I'd rather not get broken. Tony's drug a 28-foot RV all over the state with a 96 318. Yeah, I'm saying you can. I remember this guy at the track one time. He had a I know it was an E-body. I can't remember what year, but anyway, this is back before E-bodies were this insane unobtainium price thing. He had a Barracuda convertible, real rusty, real rough, and I think it was a 318. And he towed on a steel car trailer another Barracuda Grand Coupe hardtop that he raced. And I know they lived in Pulaski, and I know they raced at Princeton. So they pulled that thing, I don't know, what is that? 60 miles, 70 miles? And did it all the time on the highway. That cat, the gas tap. I haven't seen anything out of him in a long time. Has that cool little Valiant small block. He tows that with a Dakota on a car trailer. Now, in fairness, where he lives is pretty flat. That's the difference with that. Now, Punisher, Le Mans, and Thumper want to see who has the fastest Pontiac no-name nationals. Let's make it happen. Bigfoots and Mopar says an LS is not a Pontiac. Well, yeah, I guess that's. I mean, GM stuff to me. Dizzy Izzy said that a 400 with 440 heads years ago. Will 413 heads fit a 400? Yeah, they'll fit. Yeah, they'll fit. But here's the thing. The 413 had a really small bore, and a 400 has a huge bore. So you're never going to have the valve size and flow that it would want. Your 400 heads are probably better for it. Although off the top of my head, I can't think what the valve sizes are in those. But, oh, man, a 413 had a 4.12 bore, and the 400 had a 4.34. Big difference. Enough you can look at the block and see. Who is calling out who? Well, watch their channels. We'll find out. Because it sounds like Punisher Le Mans wants to have the fastest Pontiac in Sykeston, and Thumper wants to prevent that. So we'll see what happens. Watch their channels. Hopefully we'll see videos on this call out. So I should show this again for those who were not in here earlier. So this shows up in the mail this week. William, you know, as Charger 383 Mopar, decided to go way overboard and pack the top of the 2023 second annual No Name Nationals Burnout Trophy in this box. So this is part of the tire that William tried to put in orbit on Friday night, September 30th, 2022 in Sykeston. And this will be the top of the trophy for this year's Burnout Competition champion. Road Beer Garage is I used to know ran the piston in his 400 backwards to allow the piston to be closer to the plug. The only thing he's doing is he's swapping where the wrist pin is in relation through the cycle of the engine. That's what he's doing, okay? He's switching that bias where it's an offset wrist pin. And a couple of years ago, there was a huge amount of uproar on YouTube about this because you had some people trying to talk about the merits of the wrist pin reversal. And you even had somebody do a dyno test with it, but they never changed the cam timing to go with it. There are a lot of people who swear by, switching the offset in the wrist pin from one side to the other because your Mopars all ran that offset wrist pin. And Direct Connection said that there were gains to be had. They didn't say what. Joe Sherman, he got significant gains on a small block Ford doing it. David Vizard got some gains in his four-cylinder stuff doing it. Then there are people who just say there's no gains at all, but that is a real thing for sure. But it's the offset in the wrist pin. It doesn't change where the piston reaches its maximum ordnance, though, in the bore. That doesn't change. .400 is an over square, big bore short stroke, correct. 4.34 bore and a 3.38 stroke. Yeah, Bigfoots and Mopars. Yeah, what was your car running there, Mark? You were running, what, 670s? Jack Pine Savage is no slouch. He's moving. Main Street Mopar is asking, will 456 gears be good for the 8th mile? Well, that's a really broad question, but I think you're running a Diplomat, and I would say probably so. Most anything likes that much gear for the 8th. Just taking a stab at what you're running, I think you're running a small block and a Diplomat, right? Dizzy says the angle of the heads are different for between what? A B block and an RB block? What angle? Jack Pine was flying and looking good doing it, NSB says. Agreed. It's a beautiful car. And it runs. Love it. Yeah, first responder. I know that's a whole long topic. Yeah, it's a long topic, and it's right. I've had people insist to me that it makes the pistons come up higher out of the bore. I'm like, no, it can't. It's the same exact height. What it's doing is it's changing the angularity of the rod through that cycle. I'd like to see more testing done with a better control. And Tall John, if you guys know who Tall John is, he actually suggested the best way to test this back to back on the dyno, which I've never seen anybody do, and I don't know why. And that is to, when you switch them, spin the rods from the underside on the crank so that you change the offset that way. And all you'd have to do that is bevel the rods on both sides. But if you did that, you should be able to do it without actually taking the pistons out of that bore. The rings stay in there, the heads stay in there, all of that stays the same. Because most of the tests I see this done on, I don't think have a good enough control. And they don't change the cam timing. You have to do that because it changes a little bit. Main Street Mopar says, my car will have a 360 and 46 RH and 456. Well, if you're running a 46 RH, I'd be tempted to run more gear than that. I know Cope runs a 46 RH RE, and he's running 488s in Mr. Haney with a 29-inch tire, I want to say. Yeah, correct. Dougster's correct. It's the deck height is taller on the RB. So the B engine actually has, I believe it's a 9.98 inch deck height, and the RB is a 10.75. So your deck is actually 3/4 of an inch taller, and the intake is wider. and they run a longer connecting rod. The 400 runs a 6.38 rod. The RB, like the 440, runs a 6.76. 38 POS race. He's talking about even simpler than that. He's talking about turning the rod in the bore with the rings still in the bore, just turning them onto the other crank journal. I thought that was actually pretty ingenious. I thought that was an interesting way to do it. I'd have to get my head wrapped around it, but I do think that'd be the best way to do a back-to-back dyno test. I've never heard or seen anybody try that. Well, first responder on this one, I believe you can do that. I think you can radius both on these particular rods that we're talking about. Now, he was suggested doing it on a small block Ford because those super short connecting rods are only 5.1 inches on them. It's like a 302. And I totally agree with that because you would have the most exaggerated effect on that piston pin offset. It would be a really neat test to do with good controls. I think it would be neat. I know what you're saying, first responder. It depends which ones you're talking about. I know what you're saying, but I don't believe a small block Mopar. I'm pretty sure it would not. You have to take the cap with it, of course. If you exactly the rod chamfer, you can put on both sides of that one, but you have to take the cap with it, of course, because that's cut for the rod. But I believe you could do it. You take a little preparation on the connecting rods. And the oil spray the wrong direction, right? You'd have to remedy that. But I think with the work on the rods, you could do it. Thumper's trying to decide between a 350 and a 300 gear. Wow. You must have space shuttle torque if you're trying to decide between a 350 and a 300 gear. Punisher, Le Mans, and Thumper are sizing each other up. Indirect connection, there's different ways you should be able to do that. First responder, you could definitely run that rod either way. Absolutely, you can run it either way, though. I don't know that we're talking about the same thing, first responder. I know for absolute sure that you can turn that around in the bore, though. I've done it on 2 engines and it works fine. So we might not be talking about the same thing. Yeah, JC's already been to the channel where that's something they just love to mock. But I'll tell you, I think under good controls, changing that wrist pin offset would be interesting what it would show to see it done with good controls. And the tests I've seen, the controls were not nearly good enough. I mean, taking pistons and rings out and sticking them into other cylinders and not changing the cam timing to go with it, to me, that is just never going to work. Who has a 400 laying around? That's something that the only thing that I ever thought about doing on a video one time was actually showing with a dial indicator that it's not changing where the piston travels to in the bore. But I'm not sure that first responder and I are talking about the same thing, because you can definitely run your wrist pin offset on the other side of the piston. That you can definitely do. So we're not talking about probably not talking about the same thing. One Eyed Cat says, I want to do a whole mile. Junk Car Willie is doing land speed stuff in Arkansas today. He was live today. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure we're on the same thing, First Responder Garage. I know that your old factory Mopars had an offset wrist pin. I mean, it's enough you can see it. It's significant. I've forgotten the exact number. It's some of them, I think it's as much as 120 thousandths. You could see it. Offset doesn't run it higher because you think about it, you still have the exact same distance from the center of the throw to the center of the crank. You have the exact same length on the connecting rod, and you still have the exact same compression height on the piston. So what it does is it changes the timing of when the piston crests, but it doesn't change how far it comes out of the bore. Yeah, your Pontiac garages, if it's offset, you can move them to the other side of the bore. That's exactly right. And that traditionally is how you do it. But what we're talking about is a way to do it back-to-back test on the dyno without changing which rings. And what I had told him is I said, well, what if you took it off and changed the rings? He said, no, you could do it even simpler if you could turn them around on the crank throws. So that's an interesting idea. I haven't put enough thought to it, but I thought that was really ingenious if you did your prep on the rods to do that. Changes timing and dwell. Yeah, road beer. Think about it like this. Your stroke does not change. The length of the connecting rod does not change, and the compression height of the piston does not change. How can it possibly go any higher? It can't. It just changes the rod angularity when it's going through its cycles. It changes your rod angularity in relation to your cycles. But now what that actually nets us, I don't know exactly. We've seen different we've seen some people come up with some different theories on what they see in terms of the dyno. Vizard said he got as much as 7 horsepower doing that. Joe Sherman has said he's seen more than that. Some say they've seen nothing. But again, I think that how good the controls are on your dyno test makes a huge difference. See, Stumper's saying without floating pins, or with floating pins, like I run the rods, will go either way with the chamfer on both sides, right? No, road beer, it doesn't. It doesn't change your travel at all. You put it to paper, you'll see what I'm saying. We had this whole brouhaha about 2 years ago with wrist pin offset on YouTube. Oh my gosh, the world was burning down over it. There's Unfinished Project. Glad you're in here. Well, first responder, that is this big, long, crazy topic that could just go into orbit. This is already gone, is way off the rails. It would be a good video. You should do a video for that. That'd be great. I know there was a guy that did an hour long video. I didn't watch it, but that hour long video got him a whole bunch of subs. And then when he went off the rails, he lost about 80 subs, and now he's kind of semi-retired. Jason says, I remember the EGR debacle. Man, the EGR debacle was nothing like the wrist pin offset thing. Oh my gosh. Hello, 6% recycle. Glad you're here. .38 POS racing, it's not going to change the height at all. Okay, think about it like this. Here's the easiest way I can tell you it's not going to change the height. When you rotate an engine with a breaker bar, right, If your dial indicator, your piston comes up to a certain point and it goes back down. When you turn it backwards, does it go any higher? No, but that's the same thing. Yeah, first responder. It's just that we don't have a lot of time to go, and that is this wild topic. It's just this big wild topic that has a life of its own. So I wouldn't want to dive into it now. And the other thing is it will get all kinds of people raised up and wild over it. Yeah, the angle of the rod and the bore changes. Dean Stevenson says Toyota uses a 10 millimeter offset to this day. That's a lot. That is a lot. I want to say on a Chrysler, it's something on the order of about the old one's like 120 thousandths, maybe as much as 150. You could see it. I mean, you could really see it. You could visually, you could hold up a piston and see it. Yeah. See how many comments that you get on this? It's a hot topic. It hadn't come up on this channel a long time, but it's and I'm glad because people I would love to see good control done on that though. It would be interesting. P-Dub says so much for rods. What's new in the Middle East? Right. This is how we all learn. Well, here's the thing about that. What I saw about the connecting rod thing last time is we had 45% of the people got all tribal into one camp, 45% of people got all tribal into the other camp, and 10% left over were just genuinely interested in the science of it. I'm in that 10%. I would just like to see the science of it, come to fruition with good controls, good quality testing, and see what we can figure out. Everybody else was interested, is this person right or that person right? And I absolutely didn't care about that. I was interested in seeing good quality testing. I do have a hard time believing it accounts for absolutely nothing to change the relationship of the rod through the cycles of the engine. I have a hard time believing it has to be something, because as you know, in an engine, everything you do, something changes on this side, something changes on that side, something changes in the input, something changes in the result. Now, the question to me is not, is it nothing like some people say? I'm pretty sure it's something. The question is what is it? And the other part of that is I've heard that it makes a significant difference when you're crashing into the load versus a dyno that lets it raise at a predetermined RPM. There is a lot to that. Because if you think about it, like a dyno doesn't care about your accelerator pump, for example. It doesn't. It's holding it wide open against the load, and then it raises up, predetermined number of RPM. So there's that too. And how are you going to test that on a traditional dyno? You're not. So there's something to it. I would love to see it. Colleen says maybe we can talk Vizard into doing a dyno test. We'll see. Brewer says I don't think it's worth the effort. Yeah, you know what? The thing at Brewer, so think about this. Your aftermarket pistons pretty much virtually all have a centered wristband. So, yeah, it's nothing that I would seek out. It's a factory thing. Yeah, Ron G says my default is if the aftermarket doesn't do it, I'm not going to worry about it. Right. If that's all you run is aftermarket stuff. This is just a science thing with factory stuff. Dean Stevenson said an Australian engineer in '83 did it on the Holden back-to-back test. No one listens to Visor or Rossi's. People listen to who they want to listen to. It's amazing. Yeah, I agree. I think there's something to it. I would love to see good quality, honest testing. I'd like to see testing in search of answers instead of, answers looking for stuff to validate it. To me, that's worthless. I would just like to see honest testing done on the matter. And Tall John and I talked about it a little bit a while back, and man, I think he's totally right. Do it with those really short connecting rods so you get the most exaggerated effect. I'm sure first responders doing some kind of video on it now. So, but I know that we have seen reverse offset on wrist pins many, many times on Mopars. What we don't have is, I don't consider the dyno testing we've seen to test that to be nearly a good enough control. Yeah, Twisted Mopar says my pistons are turned to my engine, doesn't cost me anything. Road Beer says the why is what I want. Precisely. The why is everything. Super stock guys. Yeah, I would love to see a good test done with that. But you got to think about it. I mean, some of this stuff, the amount of work that it would go through to do a good test on it, a lot of expense, a lot of time to do a good test on it. And you already know, because I saw 2 years ago, 90% of the people out there, they've already got their mind made up before you do the test. And a lot of them are going to decide that no answer you give is good enough before you even start. That's enough to dissuade a lot of people, including me, from wanting to ever do it. But there are 10% of people out there that are genuinely interested, including me. I would love to see good quality tests, but I just remember how much ridiculous, crazy tribal mentality there was when this was a hot YouTube topic a couple years ago that makes me want to just stay back there. Who would have ever thought that would have been that big a topic? Of all the things in an engine that could have been a big topic, fully grooved main bearings, rod bearings, fully grooved main bearings, roller lifters, all the things that could have been a big topic, carburetors. No, it was offset wrist pins. Twisted Mopar can't do it with the new stuff. No, everything has a centered pin now. Dean says these tests have been done. Great. We're supposed to have JB and Tony's Hot Rod Garage join us here in a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about what they've got going on live later tonight. And then we'll slide over to JB's channel. Big Block 402 says, I think only 137 days, so I should be good. Well, I guess that includes your travel time and such. Yep. Because we've got 138, 2 hours and 19 minutes. Yeah, A Cove. It would take some work, but I think there are better ways of controlling that. Dean says sometime about a 62,500. Yeah, a lot of them are about that, right? Some of them are a lot more. Dr. Go. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Fridays are all about getting to hang out with you guys. And when we have news and guests, we want to bring them to you. Like I said, we were supposed to have David Vizard and Andy Wood on tonight. That didn't pan. We got JB ringing the doorbell. We have Tony here in just a second. Unfinished Project says only 20 Saturdays until No Name Nationals. I'll take his word for it. That sounds about right. Indirect connection. He's headed out. Have a good night all. I'm going to bring JB in here until we have Tony.
This module.
What's up, guys?
What's happening, man?
Not much, man. Transfer cases.
And we got Tony.
There's Tony.
Hold on, I got to mute your screen.
Tell them what y'all got going on over on JB's Live tonight.
All right. Well, I'll take it from there.
All right, I'm set now. Go ahead, JB.
I had no idea about this transfer case. I had found a couple of problems. So I reached out to Tony. Tony's like, heck, I'll help you out with it. And we was trying back and forth, trying to figure it out. And I was like, I'll FaceTime you. No FaceTime, And I don't know the rest of the stuff and how to do all this fancy stuff on the internet. And then I just told Tony, heck, we'll go live. We'll just do it live, all right? And so that's what's led up to this. And hopefully, with Tony looking at this and me looking at it, he can tell me what I really need to do. And heck, I'll stick it back together.
These are two smart guys here. So I'll tell you what, there's going to be some transfer case learning going on.
Figure out what the heck's broke. Something's broke.
Yeah.
And it's probably something simple.
38 POS Racing, real quick. I was talking about that with a couple people today, asking when the next content creator workshop is. The last 2 or 3 I've had, I've not seen people, the people who need them the most don't turn out, and they don't take a lot of the ideas we suggest. So I'm thinking, do we need to have another one? Y'all tell me, because I got to tell you, I want to see everybody make it, and we want to give you every opportunity to make it we possibly can. But y'all tell me if we need to have another.
Hey, is that Mohawk?
Exactly.
Right on.
Mohawk in the room.
Look at that.
Hi, guys.
In person.
Hey. We got Silver over here. Yeah. They just come by and hang out. They like
Mr. Lars there lurking in the background.
Hey, watch it, man.
Look at that. JB's got a full house.
Yep. Fired up that little blazer.
Yeah. Wow.
Impressed another one. Don't worry. It's coming for you, man.
So you got the engine all back in it.
JB, can you show us that transfer case? Show them what the live's going to be on when we go over there here in a minute.
All right. Well, I don't know. I can't really turn the phone around, but we've got all the guts out of it. Chain, right? About everything out of it, and the case itself. And I got a question on this part down here because I think it's supposed to have a magnet in it. But I don't know. This thing was so glued up, it was pathetic. I never.
Yeah, that's usually how they put them back together. Just right stuff them.
Yeah, I've never seen such. I mean, if y'all watch the transmission build, the same guy done that one. And it's a mess. It's a mess. Never.
You said last.
Stuff to people that say they know stuff.
You said last night you couldn't find a pump in that thing, and that bothers me. There's got to be a pump in it.
Yeah, there's.
I'm hoping you just don't know what the pump looks like. Otherwise, you're screwed.
I ain't gonna show you what's going on, but we'll do that on the live.
Yeah, we'll do that on ours.
Oh.
This has been a blast over here. Looks like we got everybody in the house. JB's got his whole crew over there. He's got a sharpshooter Lars to run his stuff. Tony's here, is ready to get their transfer case on. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down over here. Had a lot of fun. We talked about HOAs and the ubiquitous piston flip wrist pin offset, never ending debate. So anyway, I'm glad for all you guys that showed up and turned out. I want to thank the mods. When I have that rescheduled to be with Andy and Vizard live from the Mount Holly Vizard dungeon there, we'll do it. And probably get you some footage of Casper to track too, because that was the plan. So we'll do that. And I got some other guests coming up too. I'm trying to kind of stagger them and work around some of their other obligations, but it's going to be some fun guests. We'll talk about a lot of tech and interesting stuff. So anyway, thank you guys for turning out. And I'm going to go over to JB's channel. I've got a link below in the description to this to go over to JB's channel. And I'll see you guys over there.
Right on. Thanks, John.
See y'all shortly.